everyone, welcome back to Witch is the Moon. I am your Friday hostess, Natalie, and this week's topic is scrying. Now, if you go by the Webster's Dictionary definition of scrying, scrying is the use of a reflective surface to gain vision or sight for the future. That's not Natalie's definition of scrying. Natalie's definition of scrying is a little more in-depth than that. To me, scrying can include the use of a reflective surface, but to me, scrying is any method that you use to gain visions, specifically, or to communicate with the past, with ancestors, or with spirit using a form that is not, that is used for visions, not a form that is used indirectly. So, for example, it would not include palmistry, it would not include tasseography, which is tea leaf reading, and it would not include any form of cartomancy, which would be card reading. Those, to me, are different forms of divination, but scrying is one method of divination. That is an arsenal in a witch's tool. Now, scrying is not used just by witches, it's also used by shamans, and even by some Native American cultures, people use scrying as a method. For example, fire scrying. Everybody loves fire, right? Well, candle scrying and fire scrying. Okay, my cool idea was to light up my little candle, but my ceiling fan has other ideas. Okay, so this was the first method of scrying that I learned. And I learned it, believe it or not, from... Actually, this was the second type of scrying that I learned. Both types of scrying that I learned were fire scrying, but my great-grandmother, who was a full-blood Cherokee, she used fire, but it was like in the fireplace, or if we had a bonfire, she would show me when I was younger how to allow yourself to see visions in the fire. Candle scrying is similar, but a little bit different, and this ceiling fan is just going to blow that out, so there goes my neato idea. And once again, when you are candle scrying, your focus should be right here in the center of the flame. Can't really see it in the camera. I'm going to try to hold it a little bit closer without burning up the camera. But basically the idea would be you don't have a lot of wind over you, and you want to focus yourself like right in the center of the flame. So where that wick is, where that would be in the flame ideally would be just kind of stable and going upward. You're focused on the center part of that flame, and you're allowing your vision to just kind of blur. I mean, you don't want to stare unblinkingly at the candle or at the fire and just be like this because you're going to fry your eyeballs. You blink, okay, but you're relaxing and you're focused on that point in the flame, and basically you're going to notice that when you're doing it correctly, everything else either kind of whites out or blacks out around you, because your focus is now on the center part of that flame, and you just relax and do some breathing. I like to meditate before I scry, because to me meditation puts me in the right transient state of mind for scrying, because scrying really kind of requires some sort of shift of consciousness. So I also utilize flying ointments when I'm doing any kind of scrying work. Not always, but most of the time. So I usually do my scrying work at night. I find that nighttime is a much better time for scrying. Not that you can't scry during the day, but some tools are meant for the night, or are better at the night. And I find that for candle scrying and for fire scrying, definitely. Another method that you want to use in the nighttime would be mirror scrying. Now, this was the first mirror that I ever made for myself. I'm not pleased with it by any means. I was doing some experimentation with design, and as you can see, Celtic knots are not my forte. So I've developed another method for decorating the mirrors, and you don't have to have your mirror decorated. Some people prefer just to have nothing on it, but I like to have something that defines the space and sets it apart from something else. Ooh, look at that. It's Natalie to infinity. Woo! Okay. So mirror scrying specifically, especially if you read Raven Grimassi's definition of mirror scrying, should be done only at night, because the mirror, once it's consecrated in the moonlight for visions, because remember, scrying is a magical communication using the spirit world, which is better at night. So you consecrate the mirror in the moon, and therefore the sunlight is never to touch your mirror. So once the mirror has been consecrated, it should never see the light of day, literally. You should keep it covered with a black cloth during the day, and then at night you would set a candle in front of it and use it, or you could just use it like that. Candles, I find, are give you a nice focal point within the mirror, because it goes on for whatever. But again, you're not unblinking. Crystal scrying, water scrying, you can do a little easier during the day, in my opinion. Some people still do it at night, put a candle there, and they'll focus on the reflection of the light in the pool. But water scrying can be done using any kind of water. I mean, you could have a glass of water. This is tea, but you could have a glass of water. You could have a bowl. I usually use a black bowl. Now, I personally me, I prefer natural materials. So like glass or stone of some sort for my scrying bowls. But if you wanted to do water scrying in a bowl, or bowl scrying as it's sometimes called, you would just simply put water into a bowl and you would focus on some aspect of your reflection. I usually focus on the eyes, and just kind of allow your mind to shift into where all you see is just that. And it's not easy. Scrying is not an easy method of divination, especially for beginners. Some people, I mean, I'm not going to say that for all beginners, but blanket statement, because some people take to it right away. To me, candle scrying came very, very easy. But some people have a hard time getting into that shift of consciousness and allowing their mind to open, because your third eye really needs to be open for scrying. Now, another method of scrying that I personally do that some people may not consider this scrying, and again, if you're going by Merriam-Webster's definition, this is not a method of scrying, but to me it is, and that would be the use of pendulums. And you know, I don't get the idea that they're scrying from Charmed, so don't ask that, because that's what they refer to as scrying in the show Charmed, and technically speaking, that's not the only form of scrying. But this is the pendulum that I carry with me throughout the day. I carry this with me every day, everywhere I go. This is, I forgot what this is. Fire something. It's really pretty. It's green and orange. It's lovely. It was a gift, and it has my totem on it. And when she selected this for me, she didn't even realize the owl was one of my totems. But I carry this particular pendulum with me. This pendulum is my home pendulum. This is a lepidolite pendulum that the wonderful Houston Howman gave me. He also gave me a sodalite pendulum that I keep at my office because I do workings there as well. So this is for when I'm out and I need some assistance, or I'm looking for some guidance, or if I'm traveling, I've got this one. This one's for at home, and then the sodalite one I use at the office. Now, you can choose a pendulum based on the crystal itself. You can choose a pendulum based on your being drawn to it. It can be gifted to you. It doesn't really matter. I had always heard that your tarot cards should be gifted to you in order for them to be fully potent as a magical tool. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think if you're comfortable with the cards, the spirit's going to speak to you one way or the other. But I do think it enhances it when it's been gifted to you, because it's in the energy of a gift. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm scrying, and when I'm using a pendulum to scry, to me it's not just reflective surfaces. It's any method that's not specifically, you know, cards or something like that. And oh no, it's not in here. Ah, my card is missing. Okay, the reason I pulled this one was, this is a little purse set that I carry with me everywhere I go, and in this I keep a Sharpie, because my daughter's always dragging me to concerts and she always seems to meet the stars, so she always wants a Sharpie. But I also keep my chakra stones in it. So crystal scrying, you can use that also. I forgot to mention that one. I don't have a crystal that I feel comfortable scrying with, because I'm a little old-fashioned in some of my thinking, and I want a nice big crystal. But I did want to point out this one. Your crystal doesn't necessarily have to be clear to be used as a scrying tool. This one, it's funny because I was like, I wanted a crystal ball, and I was looking at crystal balls, and my husband got me this because he knows that purple is my favorite color. And this is amethyst, and it is lovely. I love this little natural V shape in it because my maiden name is Viner. So it's almost like it was speaking to me. And I love this, and I use it for meditative purposes, but I do not use it for scrying. I have seen people use these for scrying, and if it works for you, that's fine. You can focus on the light there. Any point that's kind of, you just pick a spot, you kind of focus on that, and you allow the visions to come to you. And that's really all there is to scrying. for me, this is just too busy. I like to use it as a meditative tool, but in terms of actually receiving visions, to me, it's very difficult. To me, I need a clear crystal. And I was looking for a large crystal ball in terms of quartz crystal, and it's very hard to come by a pure quartz crystal that's flawless, you know, pretty clear. It doesn't necessarily have to be flawless to work for you. That's my preference. So you can get crystal balls. There is a crystal that's out there that they're using that's not a quartz crystal. The reason quartz is used is because it is a stone that lends yourself to clarity of sight and vision and clear thinking. So it's very good. It lends itself to that. So if you have just a piece of quartz crystal and you want to use that as a scrying tool, you certainly can. And I'm not saying that it won't work. I'm just saying my preference is. I'm sorry, I have a dog that's like coming up underneath the table and sticking her head up between my legs, and she's bumping the table, so I apologize. Sadie, get out from under there, babe. Go. And dude, don't you get under there. Now they're starting to wrestle. So there is another crystal that's out there that's supposed to carry the same kind of characteristics and qualities. The dogs are now wrestling, so I'm sorry. The table is moving. Oh, I can't get through one of these videos without some disaster befalling me. But I don't know how good it is myself. Now, I've been eyeballing this crystal ball for some time because it's about 9 centimeters, so it's a good size ball. To me, that's the size I need. To me, this is really kind of too small for me personally to focus. I want something that's good size, like what you would see in the movies, kind of, you know, crystal. A lot of those are made of glass, and I'm not saying that it can't work, because scrying obviously is the use of any reflective surface to gain visions. You can certainly gain visions from it, but it is not my preference. I would rather have some sort of a crystal. So I'm still on the hunt. But the larger ones tend to be a few $100s, so they get kind of pricey. Now for that, you can use it during the day. Excuse me, one moment. Hey! You two need to knock it off. Yeah, I apologize. They're over here like wrestling like little lovers. It's driving me nuts. Because they keep bumping the table and shaking the camera. Sadie, dude, out. Go. Thank you. Okay, I apologize. So it's my personal preference, but that doesn't mean that it wouldn't work. And that doesn't mean that glass wouldn't work, because you can use a regular mirror for scrying. If you want to just flip off the lights, put a candle there. I have done that before, especially if I've been like out of town and I don't have any of my other scrying tools with me. I may use the mirror in the bathroom. I just set up a candle in front of it and turn off the lights, and I can scry that way too. Okay, now you two, I just told you, stop it. God, I'm so sorry. So anyhow, those are various different types of scrying that I use. Again, I lump the use of pendulums into scrying. It's not technically by the book definition of scrying, but I see it as that because to me, it's scrying is any divination method you use that's not otherwise specifically named. So like tasseography, cartomancy, that sort of thing. Now, when using a pendulum, a lot of people get into using pendulums and they think it is easy. It's probably one of the easier methods of scrying, but it doesn't work like it does in Charmed, where the little thing you just keep thinking and then it pulls down on an answer. Scrying is going to need some sort of a board. Now, I am going to turn this into a scrying board for myself. A pendulum board. Excuse me, not a scrying board, but a pendulum board. And I have a piece of paper, my mind just went totally blank. I am so sorry. A note card. It's like one of those little note cards like you use in school when you have to make your notes and turn them into your teacher, that I keep in this, and it's missing. But basically it has yes, yes, no, no. And it can be something as simple as that. You can take your pendulum, you'll hold it, let it stabilize, and then you'll ask a question. You can say it out loud, you can ask it in your mind, and the pendulum will start to move. Okay? And I just find it useful to have that point of reference. The yes, yes, no, no. It can be yes, yes, no, no. It can be whatever you want. You can have I don't know or can't tell you. You can set it up any way you want it. I just find that it's very useful to do that. And I do consider that a method of scrying. So you just hold the pendulum and let it swing. Now, some people say, oh, you're making it swing. Well, you know what? There's ways around that too. I have actually set up like a fork in a piece of block, you know, like a styrofoam block, and put the pendulum on that since it's got the little thing, and let it sit on its own, and that way no one is touching it. Turn off all the fans, make sure there's nothing that could affect it, and I allow the pendulum to do its work, and I find that that works. You do not have to hold it. I find it works better if you hold it because you are acting as an energy conduit, but you do not have to. So if you have naysayers and people that don't believe, they think you're sending it whatever direction, you can always do it that way. So those are a few of the tools that I use in scrying. Those are a few of my methods. I'd love to hear what you guys do. Again, it doesn't have to be anything overright. What's nice about scrying is it's something you can do without anybody even realizing what you're doing. So you could be in a restaurant and you could be scrying in your glass and nobody would know necessarily unless they know you well and they know your scrying face or divination face. You know, if somebody that's with you recognizes that you're zoned out, then that could be, you know, a telltale sign. But other people may not know. They may just think you're deep in thought. But you open your mind and you allow that to come through. Now, once again, as I mentioned earlier, I prefer to meditate for a few minutes before I scry so that I can clear my mind of anything that may be influencing things or stopping the spirit from coming through or stopping me from getting through the shift of consciousness. I am so sorry. They're really bumping the table, and you all need to go now. Okay. So, but it's not necessary. You don't necessarily have to do that. Again, that's my personal preference. So, tell me what you do. I would love to hear what some of your practices are, some of the things that you do, some of the methods that you like. If you learned something new from this video that you didn't know before, I'd love to hear about that. I hope you all have a wonderful 4th of July weekend, and blessed be.